All right, let's just dive right into a huge paradigm shift today. So often we completely beat ourselves up for procrastinating, right? We think, oh, I'm just lazy, or I literally have no discipline, or we just blame our work ethic when we don't hit our goals. But as we unpack this explainer today, we are going to completely dismantle that idea. The real, hidden truth, your struggle to take action is almost never a laziness problem. It is actually an invisible fear problem. And the really great news here is that once you can clearly spot that fear, you can absolutely crush it. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover, first, the illusion of intellectual fear. Second, rewiring your repeated thoughts. Third, motivation versus true drive. Fourth, the power of silence. And finally, taking radical life responsibility. Okay, section 1, the illusion of intellectual fear. Let's start by totally reframing those invisible forces that are holding you back right now. Think about this. Why do we deeply want something? Like, we have these massive goals we absolutely know are important, but we just can't seem to bring ourselves to actually focus on them. We put things off, we push it to next year, we watch other people launch that exact same business or project, and then we just agonizingly stress over our own inaction. Well, the answer actually lies in how our brains are wired to process threats. Basically, we experience two completely different types of fear. First, there's primal fear. This is the real deal. Immediate pain, death, physical threats. Think, a wild animal chasing you. But let's be real, in our modern world, we almost never face primal fears. Instead, what we're dealing with is intellectual fear. This is the fear of rejection, the fear of failing, or honestly, even the fear of succeeding. These are entirely made-up future scenarios. We literally wake up and invent a boogeyman. And here's the ultimate trap. You cannot fight something that doesn't exist. So instead of just taking action, we end up burning all of our mental energy trying to box a ghost. Have you ever had one of those nightmares where a lion is chasing you and you wake up sweating, your heart is just pounding out of your chest, and you're totally out of breath? Your body didn't move a single inch in reality, but physically, you just survived a life or death attack. Humans have this wild superpower where we can project our minds into a future that hasn't even happened yet. But when we project into a scenario where, say, our new business fails or we get rejected, our brain literally pumps our body full of the exact same stress hormones as if that lion were actually attacking us. So your fake intellectual fear creates a very real physical paralysis. Moving on to section 2, rewiring your repeated thoughts. So once we realize these fears are just made-up mental movies, the next step is figuring out how to untangle ourselves from those exhausting daily mental loops. You have to understand there is a massive difference between your first thought and your second thought. Your first thought, it's totally automatic. It's programmed into you. Like, you might automatically judge a stranger, or your immediate gut reaction thought might be, I'm just not good enough to pull this off. And the truth is, you actually cannot control that initial knee-jerk reaction. But your second thought, that one is chosen. It is entirely intentional. Your real power doesn't lie in stopping the first thought, because you can't. Your immense power lies entirely in dictating what that second thought is going to be. So how do we actually pull that off? Well, there's a really brilliant 3-part framework for this. Step 1 is simply awareness. You literally just have to catch yourself and go, okay, wow, I'm aware I'm in a state of fear or judgment right now. Step 2 is practice. You intentionally choose a different response. So if your first thought was a paralyzing fear of failure, your practiced second thought becomes, wait, what is the absolute best thing that could happen? And step 3 is repetition. You just do this over and over and over. By repeatedly swapping out that automatic negative thought with a forced intentional one, you are quite literally physically rewiring your brain's default pathways. Picture this. Imagine you're sitting way up on the top of a mountain, looking down at a busy highway. The cars driving by are your thoughts. Most of us, we run all the way down to that highway and let ourselves get essentially kidnapped by every single red car, every single anxious thought that drives past. But true mindfulness, it's just staying seated on that mountain. You acknowledge the car is there, you see the anxious thought zooming by, but you actively choose not to get in the passenger seat. You just watch it pass by. All right, section 3, motivation versus true drive. Now that we know how to clear out those mental blocks and hijacked thoughts, let's get into the actual mechanics of generating absolutely unstoppable action. I want to hit you with a really intense hypothetical for a second. If I asked you right now, what is the percentage chance of you legally making $1 million this year? You'd probably say, 0 or maybe 1%. But what if I told you that if you didn't do it, everyone you loved would die? I guarantee your answer instantly shoots up to 100%. You wouldn't wake up and doom scroll on your phone. You would take massive immediate action. Notice what happened there. The goal didn't change at all. The timeline didn't change. Literally, the only thing that changed was the stakes. When the why is big enough, procrastination just completely evaporates. And this brings us to a huge realization. We have got to destroy our reliance on motivation. Listen, motivation is incredibly fleeting. You listen to a deep dive explainer like this, you feel amazing, you're pumped up, but by Tuesday morning, that feeling is totally gone because it's external and totally dependent on your mood. What you actually need to build is drive. Drive is permanent. It's internal. It is rooted in a deep, unshakable why. A motivated person, they can get derailed by a bad day. A driven person, they simply cannot be stopped. So, how do you actually find that core drive? You do what's called the 7 levels of why exercise. For example, there was a coaching client highlighted in the source material who said he just wanted to make $100,000. Sounds like a standard goal, right? But by asking why over and over, peeling back the layers, the real reason came out. He wanted that $100,000 so he could afford to regain custody of his kids, move them into his house, and ultimately get them out of a dangerous neighborhood so they wouldn't fall victim to drive-by violence. Wow. Earning $100K is just a nice idea you can easily procrastinate on, but saving your children's lives, that is a primal drive that guarantees action. You have to keep asking yourself why until you hit that unbreakable core. Okay, section 4, the power of silence. So what if that core why isn't immediately obvious to you? Well, finding it requires shifting gears into a practice that is frankly pretty uncomfortable but absolutely essential. Dr. Gabor Mate has this profound observation. He says, don't ask why the trauma, ask why the pain. You see, a lot of us use constant busyness just to run away from our internal pain. As a society, we might look at someone struggling with alcoholism and easily recognize it as an addiction to numb trauma. But society often rewards the workaholic. We literally celebrate the person who is grinding 24/7. But a lot of the time, that relentless busyness, or even just constantly scrolling on our phones, is just another addiction. We're using it to run away from unresolved pain so we don't have to actually feel our own feelings. To stop running, we have to start utilizing silence. And there's a fantastic analogy for this. Think about it. When you squeeze an orange, what comes out? Orange juice, obviously. Why? Because that is exactly what was already hiding inside. When you sit in complete silence and do absolutely nothing, the pressure of that silence acts exactly like squeezing that orange. Whatever anxiety, tears, or unresolved stuff suddenly comes rushing up to the surface, the silence didn't create that. It was already hiding inside of you, just waiting to be processed. And as those feelings do start to surface, you need to shift your whole approach. Stop trying to know yourself. Knowing is entirely based on the past, on your memories, on this rigid, fixed idea of who you used to be. Instead, flip your mindset to learning yourself. This is all about the present moment. It's about getting super curious about whatever emotions are bubbling up right now, because you're constantly evolving. Sitting in silence lets you learn who you are becoming today, rather than desperately clinging to who you were yesterday. What you'll discover in that silence is this beautifully freeing duality. To really find peace, you kind of have to hold 2 totally opposing thoughts in your head at the exact same time. First, you need to believe your life and your actions are deeply significant, like they matter immensely to your family and your immediate circle right now. But at the exact same time, you have to realize you are completely insignificant. We're just tiny specks on a rock in a vast universe, and in 1,000 years, literally none of our current stresses will be remembered. Holding both of those truths simultaneously takes a massive amount of pressure off your shoulders. It lets you take incredibly focused action, but without that crushing, paralyzing weight of perfectionism. C.S. Lewis put this brilliantly. He said, you don't have a soul, you are a soul. You have a body. Most of us wake up and instantly start obsessing over our bodily anxieties, right? Our appearance, how tired we are, the exact number in our bank accounts. And sure, it's natural to care for the body, but when you zoom out during those moments of silence, you remember to detach from it. You are this unchanging internal self. And when you operate from that centered, quiet place, you aren't just white-knuckling your way through life driven by fear. You're allowing life and action to just flow effortlessly through you. Finally, Section 5, taking radical life responsibility. Let's pull everything we've talked about together for our climactic, final takeaway. Think about a business. If a business has a massively successful year, whose fault is it? The CEO's. And if that exact same business goes completely under, whose fault is it? Yup, it's still the CEO's. You can't just blame the economy or your employees or the market. And guys, that exact same uncompromising logic applies directly to your life. If you reach the end of your life and it's filled with abundance, joy, and love, that's on you. If you get to the end and you're totally unfulfilled and drowning in regret, that is also on you. You are the CEO of your own life, and to actually take control, you have to completely drop the victim mindset. Now, I know that sounds super heavy, but it's a wildly empowering truth. It is absolutely not your fault if you experienced childhood trauma. It is not your fault if someone deeply betrayed you. But, and here's the kicker, regardless of how totally unfair it is 100% your responsibility to heal it and fix it. Blaming other people, even when you are totally justified in doing so, only keeps you stuck in inaction. Taking absolute, radical ownership is literally the only mechanism that gives you the power to actually change your circumstances. So, as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with one final, provocative question. Knowing right now that you are fully responsible for your own healing, and knowing that your lack of action is really just fabricated intellectual fear, what is the one fake boogeyman keeping you from taking over as the CEO of your life today? Identify it, sit in silence with it, and then boldly step right past it. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one.